What's up again, YouTube? Your friendly neighborhood Hyperion here, and with another video talking about one of my many redstone creations. And we're sitting here in my crafting room or workshop, whatever you'd like to call it, where I like to do most of my crafting. But you'll might notice that something's missing. I mean, this is the room where I do most of my crafting, but there's no crafting table. And the reason for that is because, I've never been a fan of crafting tables. I always see people's houses and it's like, you can just tell the house was built around the crafting table, so it's kind of awkwardly placed and they're not the most attractive thing. So unless you find a good place to like work it into the decor, I like to hide it. And with this room in particular, where I spend most of my time working on a crafting table, I wanted to really step it up a bit and hide it somewhere uh, very unique. So where did I hide it, you might ask? Well, it's right in front of me. It's right here. Well, it's not right here. You gotta come over here and find the secret button. When you find the secret button and push it, then there it is. And now you can craft. And then when you're all done, you just come over here and away it goes. Hidden. This is one of my favorite gimmicks of my castle, if not my most favorite redstone build. And part of the reason why is because it was one of my early builds in this castle, one of my first or early redstone contraptions that I figured out for myself. Now, that's only partially true because it was slightly based on a design from another very good YouTube video provider named Mumbo Jumbo. He is a redstone god. But I took his design and stepped it up a bit. Now, he only showed me how to do a double piston system, but I took it a little bit further. And I just wanted to show you guys how I pulled that off. And I've been wanting to do this for a while, so let's get right into it. Now down here is a lot of the redstone for it, and one thing I like to try to always emphasize with people is that when I was building this castle, my rule was I had to build it in survival mode, and I built the castle first and then worked all the redstone and stuff into it. So this design is really hard to show off, especially since I'm in a survival mode world. I don't want to really break up too much stuff. I know I don't have to save the game and everything like that, but it's just going to be a lot easier to go over to my creative world and show you. But I wanted to show you everything down here because I wanted to emphasize that I had to work around a lot of stuff to try to get to things. You can see back there's some glowing redstone, and that's from one of my other contraptions. So working in this tight environment made it really challenging, and that allowed me to really get creative with a lot of my inventions. So let's get this out of here and let's go to my creative world, and then I can really show you how this works. So here you can see the redstone that goes into the crafting table swapper. Now I'm not going to get into a full breakdown of how to build this. I'm not going to give a full tutorial step by step because of two reasons. Number one, this is different than what's underneath my castle in my survival game because I had to work around all the redstone. This is it's kind of a simplified version. And the other reason is because you don't have to build it this way. So you can kind of build it your own way. The big key is to understand the components that go into it. And that's what I want to show off here. But first of all, let me show you what's actually happening. So when I go over here and hit this button, you'll see that there is a double piston system that pulls the block down 2 spaces, and then another set of pistons that swap the blocks, and then the pistons push it back up 2 spaces. Now, the biggest key to all this is timing. And timing is going to depend on how you lay your redstone down. So it's going to be a little trial and error if you try to make this yourself. If you make it exactly like this, yes, it should work. But you might not have this kind of space to work with. And you might be working around other stuff like I do typically in my survival world. But once again, let me show you that one more time. And there you go. So obviously one of the big key components of this is the double piston extender. Now this is the one item that I actually did not create myself. I got this off of another YouTuber by the name of Mumbo Jumbo. Great videos. If you want to know anything about redstone, he's a great guy to follow. He's got tons of crazy inventions, and probably if you go to his page, you'll never come to mine again. But Regardless, he deserves the views. So he gave me the plans on one of his videos for the double piston extender. So that's key number one. The second thing is figuring out how to get the two pistons on the sides to switch between each other and swap. Yeah, that's a phrase. Anyways, so once you get those two parts figured out, then the third element you got to figure out is timing. And I've got a few tricks for that, but for the most part, that's going to be on you to figure out. But let's get started on at least talking about the two components I can show you here in this world. So here we have the design that I got off of a YouTube video for the double piston extender, and this was something I was really happy to learn, because if you've ever tried to build a double piston and you don't know these tricks, you'll find that it's quite difficult. And part of the reason why is because the pistons, when they retract, won't pull the blocks with them. So when you go and take this away, you'll see that when I push it on, yes, it goes all the way to the top and the pistons extend twice, but when I switch it off, the diamond block stays. And that's because the second piston isn't pulling the piston and the block. Even though that's a sticky piston, the game doesn't care, it doesn't count. So how you do that is with a one-tick pulse system like this, where the dropper shoots an item into a hopper, which feeds it right back, and it happens in a split second, in one tick. And so that happens so fast that you'll actually see the piston shoot back up and grab the block before it finalizes. And that's really the key to that. So you can rebuild this exactly as you see here. You can see all the redstone involved with it, and you can recreate it exactly like this, and it should work. You can do it with a button, but the button will shut off at some point in time. And there you go. The button will shut off, and it eventually will come back up. So that's how you get it to kind of come down. Now from there, what you want to do, and this is one of the first keys of timing, is, well, I mean, time it. And here I've used a comparator timer, as well as some delayed redstone, and those go into the pistons on the side, but we'll get into that in a second. The delayed redstone, though, this right here, will hold the thing down for a few seconds, long enough for all the other mechanics to go into play. So while I hit this button, there is a delay, and then it holds long enough for those two to swap. And this comparator timer, which I've covered in previous videos, pretty much does the job for you. You can even extend this out and hold it down longer, but as you can see, it's totally working. And the way that it works is that it's an instant on timer, and then it slowly burns out. And that just kind of holds it there long enough for everything else in the mechanics to work. The next part, though, is the tricky part, and that's getting these two pistons to switch places. Because you want to be careful not to push this piston out of the way, or shove another block in its place, or just not be able to move at all. Now, you don't necessarily need these buffer blocks right here that I put in. You could condense it down tighter. I like to use the buffer blocks because, as you can see, we've got some redstone running underneath this, right underneath this piston here, and you could move this around so it's coming in this way, but just the best way to avoid redstone interfering with my pistons was to add some spacer blocks right here, and they don't really affect anything. If I had to add too many, obviously that'd be difficult for the pistons to push. But how do you get the timer to swap between the two pistons? And that is using this over here. Now this is a one-tick pulse switch, kind of my own design. I think I've seen other people use it, but I figured this out on my own. And what it does is, I've got some examples over here. It's very useful in a lot of ways. It's very useful as a way to turn a button into an on-off switch. And how that works is, when you got a setup like this, a piston faces straight up with a block on top, and a repeater going into it, and a repeater or redstone going out of it, you get this effect. And I turned so you couldn't see it. But as you can see, that block is now not in the same spot. What has happened here, and I'm going to get an angle where you can actually see what's happening, is the piston is moving at 1 tick. Pistons typically move at 2 ticks. 1 tick to push forward, 1 tick to come back. But since this thing is cutting it off at a tick, as you can see, watch this repeater right here, if I can get a good angle of it, it flashes so fast that the piston only moves forward and then resets instantly. And when it resets instantly, this block is still considered transparent, or it doesn't exist. If you've ever stood on a piston when it's moving and you've fallen into the block, you know what I'm talking about. So since it's transparent, it doesn't actually exist, and the piston has come back before it has officially spawned. It's kind of a bug to the game, but it's one that they thankfully have left in because people have utilized this so much. But as you can see, since the redstone block has moved positions, it is now switched between which redstone it is touching. You put redstone here. Now you could put it side by side, and I got that kind of in over here, as you can see. Put it side by side, and when it activates, it switches power from one set of redstone to the other. And that is how you switch between one piston and the other uniformly. The downside is sometimes it moves so fast that the pistons try to move at the same time and they get jammed up, and that's where you've got to kind of time things, and you can use the repeaters to time it, slow it down a little bit, and you just got to kind of play with it and see what's going on. But as you can see right here, we've got on that light is on, and now that light is on. So that's how you can swap power between two objects, and just by using a button. Another use for this real quick, and it doesn't go into this build, but I'll just show you, is you can also do that with just a regular block and a power source with a repeater, because once you close that gap, the power continues through. Obviously you can't push redstone, but you can push a normal block, and that's a way to not waste 9 redstone on a redstone block, but you know, it's just another way to do it, and it's also a good way to make an on-off switch with a button instead of an actual switch. So really, that's kind of all that really goes into it. You've got the button will activate, as you can see, it runs down here and it goes to here and it activates, and it hits the timer, which is going to hold it on for a few seconds, but it activates the double piston extender. So when I hit that button, I should have put a, you know what, let's just put a button here. You can see the timer's holding it on, which is holding the pistons down. And then when I hit that button again, you can see over here that the redstone block just switched, and that switches which piston is extended, and therefore which block should be in place. And from there, like I said, it's just timing. Now I've got these redstone repeaters here, and this keeps this whole system right here activating until after the double piston extender has dropped down completely. And then you have this, which holds the double piston extender down, and then you have to fiddle with this timing between the two blocks, because since this runs longer redstone, this one runs at a slight delay to that one. So sometimes if I didn't set the timing on the repeaters, then this piston is trying to push into this piston while it's already extended, and you're not going to get any results. So the trick is to try to get it just right so that they happen almost a hair apart from each other. And you can actually see that here. If you watch, this one will go back almost a split second before, there it goes, a split second before this one activates. And all that is timing. Timing with repeaters, and depending on how much redstone you run, all that's going to matter. Even using a wooden button or a stone button or a wooden plate or a stone plate will all change that variable, because they all hold for different amounts of time in the power. So those are all things you're going to have to think of, and you're just going to have to fiddle with it based on how you lay your redstone out. But otherwise, that's all that goes into it. You could easily make this yourself. It really doesn't take that many expensive ingredients. And I do prefer, by the way, I'm just going to mention that this is a 1-tick counter, but this is also a 1-tick counter. And in my opinion, this uses a little less resources, but is less bulky. And this one, I'll be honest with you, I just like pistons. I like when I hit a button, hearing them go off. It tells me that the mechanics are working. It tells me that everything is behaving as it should, and it always gets a little bit of attention. When you push a button and people can hear a piston somewhere in the house doing something, they're like, what's about to happen? And they focus a little bit more on it and pay attention, and they're less likely to miss it. So that's why I like this design as a on-off switch system for buttons. And I hope it's something that you could probably use yourself in some creative ways. And this is one way to do it, and it's one of many ways to do it, and I hope it helped you figure out something fun. You don't have to do it for a crafting table. You can put anything there to be swapped. You could even put like a step to get up somewhere, or something along those lines. Get creative, but this system is mostly a block swapper, and it's just fun. I like watching it work. A lot of mechanics. So like always, thank you for watching. Hope I helped in any way, and hope I see you in another video. Take care now. Bye-bye.